some of the subsets there. But let's look at the other issue first. The data gap itself can still be an artifact of the way that we've got this stuff coded. Okay, so bear in mind that when I first set out, I had all these words and I was guessing as to their emotional impact and how long that emotional impact carried forward into the future relative to an event manifesting. So over the course of time, I've refined and retuned the lexicon, but it's not as though every word in the lexicon has been repeatedly revisited and retuned, because the thing has grown itself as I've added more languages and the internet has grown. So I've been facing a dual problem, so to speak, adding more languages and gaining more data at the same time that I was getting further clues as to, oh, I really screwed up on this word. Its impact is actually 3 weeks, and I'd had it out for 3 months. And so therefore I could refine it a little bit better by going back and tuning some of these things. Now, I personally, I think it's a waste of time to listen to me, and it's a waste of time to put any of this crap on YouTube. However, that having been said, obviously that element is fulfilling some purpose within Universe, because we live in a highly structured universe, and Universe would not come along and throw the idea to do that with the sufficient emotional energy into this particular being if it did not want that done. Now, I'm not talking about predetermination or anything like that, but let me divert for a second and say that I was not the only one that had this idea to do this kind of searching on the internet. I don't know if I even predate everybody that's currently doing it now, because a lot of people are doing it very secretively. I do know that after I'd been doing it for a number of years, I ran across some of the people that were also doing it, and was able to do some location analysis on them, and found that there were some Chinese and there were some Russians and there were some guys in Poland that were also doing it. Now there's even the announcements of people taking money from various different venture capitalists and forming corporations to do this kind of analysis. So it certainly was a universal trend that was expressing itself that I just happened to be part of. Makes sense at that stage? So the trend's going along. There's Chinese doing this kind of work. The idea was out there floating along. And as I was joking with this other programmer the other day, I was joking with this guy. He called me up and he was saying, I had that idea at the same time. I just never did it. And it was like, well, and we even programmed in close to the same set of programming languages. And he would have approached it slightly differently, but that doesn't matter. But I was joking with him that basically what occurred was that my particular set of vibrations were such that I attracted and built up these skills such that my brain, my neurons, were aligned a particular way, and they acted as an antenna, and this idea settled on it and provided enough emotional impetus for me to go actually out and do it, whereas this other guy didn't get the emotional impetus, even though he had the same idea about the same time. So obviously, my conclusion is that that's the way Universe works. That it decides that certain things should be done. People are acting as certain antennas. They receive the ideas and somehow also obtain the emotional energy to convert the idea to actual accomplishment. Therefore, it kind of freaks me out that people pay attention to what I say, and it further does so to find that my words are on YouTube. But obviously, Universe wants that to occur, and I have to accept that at a certain level, that somehow there's words that are in there that are going to be meaningful in whatever Universe wants done. So it's a long way getting back around saying that, yes, the whole structure of the forum is useful, not only in my work. In my work, it's actually very useful, but in a negative sense, because it keeps all you guys concentrated in an area I can easily block out. So, which is a good thing, okay? Because then it means slightly less amounts of filtering.
That's good to know.
Yeah, but also you also have to look at it another way. Universe will put blocks and obstacles in your way to continue or to direct you back to specific paths if you haven't finished with those patterns. So the Buddhists have a saying that when you see the pattern is when you can step out of it. And I think that if you've attempted to disband and it hasn't taken, so to speak, hey, all your patterns aren't worked out yet.
Yeah, we're still working them out on a daily basis, it seems like, and I just want you to know if there's a lot of us here, and if any of us can be of service, please don't hesitate to ask.
Oh, I certainly would. No question about that, and I'd be very grateful for the assistance if I could figure out a way to use it.
And that'll cost you some karma, Clif, by the way. Ma'am, you've got a question follow-up?
Yes. Clif, is there anything that you can elaborate on how we end up being a positive benefit?
Boy, I sure hate to.
Well, you don't have to. I'm not asking you to go against what you think you should do.
Yeah, and see, there's the thing, is that I've got to be real careful. As more and more people, for whatever reason universe wants, start paying attention to me, then I have to start really being careful that I don't set up any kind of self-fulfilling blockages or any of this sort of thing. So here's the problem, right? You see it in the science fiction shows. You're out there, the science fiction anomaly occurs, you become aware of it, whether it's, a giant black hole that's going to eat you up or something along these lines, or in this case, a time distortion. And all of a sudden, then you start realizing, oh, crud, there's an element of karma involved here, and every time I do X, universe provides Y, which forces me back to have to deal with my Z, which is my original problem again. So, to a certain extent, I really just would like to let it be as to why I think, or as to what evidence I have that there's a positive effect that comes out of it, because I don't want to give even a hint that it's okay. And I'm not aggrandizing myself or anything like that. I'm just going to use an example here that I know of that speaks to the core issue I've got. There was this guy, his name was Shakyamuni. He became known later on as the Buddha. He got an enlightenment experience one day after he was enlightened, when he was like 66 or 67 years old. He had one of these people that was hanging around as a disciple or wanted to also be enlightened, asked him, well, hey, I noticed you're a vegetarian. Why don't you tell people to also be vegetarian if that's what got you where you're at? And he said, I can't tell them that except to say that it got me where I am at. But how the hell am I to know if it'll get you there? And that's basically the same kind of situation that I'm facing here. I wouldn't want to tell anybody to be a vegetarian because maybe that's not what they need to deal with in their karma right now. And even though I think it may be a good thing, it's only a good thing for me, and I certainly wouldn't want to impose it on anybody else. So I'm very much aware that there is a good component to this, other than the negative of being able to screen it all out. But I just don't want to comment on the nature of it, as squirrely as it sounds.
I understand it.
Okay, Clif. Just a quick question. You probably forecasted this, but do you have another 30 minutes to go over? We've just got a.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No worries. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. I'm set to go until 10 my time.
10 your time. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So have you got any other time to go over 10 possibly? Sure.
Yeah. We can go a little bit over that, but I'll fade fairly quick. Bear in mind, I'm an old guy. I get up real early, at way too damn dark, 30 in the morning, and go out for my constitution at like 5 a.m. before the sun. So it's a long day.
Fine, no problem. I've got two quick questions. If maybe you can answer them quickly.
Sure.
In shape 6, you mentioned a solar spasm that causes or induces blindness and madness. Do you have any more info on that, as well as the remnants of Ramna, since the alien memes is ramping up?
Yeah, the solar spasm is was still gaining support, and now the very nasty part is we're starting to see official language out of NASA suggesting that they expect that also will occur. Whether it's going to be, we actually had an instance of this in Patagonia, I believe, where a bunch of people in an outlying region were underneath the UV or the ozone hole, and UV light came on in and caused 6,000 sheep and a bunch of shepherds to go blind and kill themselves in the mountains, that kind of thing, simply because they couldn't see where they were going and they fell off the cliffs and had issues. It appears that that's what we're dealing with, and NASA is also now thinking that will be part of this upcoming solar maximum. So in their mind, they're putting it down to about mid 2012. I would suspect that we'll know by Gerald's calendar here if it'll be even in late 2011 that such a thing will occur. And basically, I think it'll be part of the pole shift. If the magnetosphere flips, the walkabout poles, sorry about going on about this, but if the walkabout poles occur, then and the southern pole splits up, it is at that same time there's a corresponding degradation of the magnetosphere all around the planet, and the upper atmosphere will change, including the ionosphere, which will cause very large rifts. So it may be that sort of thing that we'll be dealing with. In terms of the remnants of Rama, I think that we still have yet to see that. There's all kinds of crud going on in terms of the secret war that's happening. Now, the secret war would actually tend to support Jay Weidner's approach that these Aryans, the Archons, are hopping in their spaceships and beating the retreat back to Mars, because it's kind of like as that occurs, the locals that they're leaving behind, who are not invited to come along, are taking pot shots at them out of frustration and anger and all the other reasons that you can think. There is some evidence to support that that's going on. And so I suspect relatively shortly, sometime in the chaos of summer, we may well see a bunch of fireballs come on down, and part of it's going to be a spaceship. There's some huge stuff up there, just phenomenal. I was sent a video, which is commonly available off of the Soho, that we actually did a pixel investigation on, and if our math is correct, and we assumed that the thing was at the same distance from the satellite as the sun, then the small middle connection part of this X-craft is on the order of 5 miles wide, and each of the 4 arms of the X are 50 miles long.
Well, Diane, I think you had a question for Clif?
Yes, I did. All I wanted to ask is, there anything in the data that discusses people going underground to avoid all this radiation or whatever's coming from
Sure. Yeah. There's huge amounts of data for that, so much so we don't even look at it anymore. There's real problems with that in reality, though. It's at best it is a temporary kind of a situation. Humans have been there before, though. I mean, we find examples in Utah of caves that were inhabited that are 300 feet up off of the floor of the local valleys. Up in my neck of the woods here, we have caves that have human habitation signs that go back 40,000 years. And there are specific periods there that correspond with what we know to be periods of solar disturbances, such as 26,000 years back. We have a period of intense habitation that lasted in these caves, insofar as the guess from the academics, and it has to all be a guess, but it showed people living there for almost 50 years. So that works. People can inhabit caves for 50 years, but they can't go underground for 50 years and subsist underground, in spite of the idea that you may have enough food, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's because of what occurs to humans themselves after they've been underground for a period of time. And we see it with government workers and this kind of thing now, and they're not even 100% underground. They get, come on out occasionally, that sort of a deal.